I once had it all: the perfect marriage, successful career, and a beautiful home in Seattle. But life has a way of shattering illusions. When I discovered my wife Amanda was having an affair with my business partner Jackson, I made a decision that shocked everyone. Instead of confrontation, I disappeared completely. 5 years of careful silence later, Amanda somehow found my new email address. The messages keep coming, each one more desperate than the last. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Before I tell you how I discovered her betrayal and why I chose to vanish instead of confronting her, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to make a difficult choice that changed your entire life. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle. My parents had the kind of marriage I always admired. They worked through their problems together, never went to bed angry, and showed me what real commitment looked like. Every Sunday morning they would make pancakes together in perfect synchronization, my dad mixing the batter while my mom heated the griddle. That image stayed with me as the blueprint for my future. After graduating from the University of Washington with a business degree, I landed a job at a marketing firm. I worked my way up quickly, earning a reputation for creativity and dedication. My colleagues often joked that I was married to my work, and in those early years they were right. My focus was building a career that would eventually support the family I hoped to have. The values my parents instilled in me ran deep: trust, loyalty, honesty. I believed that with these as my foundation, nothing could go wrong. The universe had a different plan for me, though. One that started the moment I met Amanda. It was June, the perfect Seattle summer day when the sun actually decided to make an appearance. My college friend Tyler was getting married, and I was a groomsman. During the reception, I went to the bar for another drink when someone bumped into me from behind. I turned around, and there she was, Amanda Parker. Dark hair, bright blue eyes, and a smile that literally made me forget my own name when the bartender asked for it. She wore a deep green dress that complemented her pale skin perfectly. She apologized for bumping into me, but I told her it was the best thing that had happened to me all day. We talked for hours that night, missing most of the reception. I learned she was a graphic designer with a sharp wit and a passion for old noir films that matched my own. When she laughed at my jokes, it felt like winning an award. By the end of the night, I knew I had met someone special. Our romance moved quickly after that. Within a month, we were spending every weekend together exploring Seattle. She introduced me to hidden bookstores I had never noticed, despite living there my entire life. I took her hiking on trails my family had frequented when I was young. Everything felt easy with Amanda, like we had known each other in a previous life, and were just picking up where we left off. 8 months after we met, I took her to Mount Rainier. We hiked to a secluded viewpoint overlooking Paradise Valley. The wildflowers were in bloom, painting the landscape with purples and yellows. I had planned to wait until sunset, but the moment felt so perfect that I could not hold back. I dropped to one knee right there on the trail and pulled out the emerald ring that had belonged to my grandmother. The look on her face, a mixture of surprise and joy, is something I can still picture perfectly. She said yes before I even finished asking. On the drive back to Seattle, she kept looking at her ring in the changing light, smiling. Each time it caught the Sunday, she talked about our future, the children we would have, the home we would build together. I had never been more certain about anything in my life. Our wedding took place the following spring in Napa Valley. Amanda had always loved the rolling vineyard hills, and she looked absolutely radiant against that backdrop. My parents cried during our vows, and I remember feeling like the luckiest man alive. We bought our first home together in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle. It was a craftsman-style house built in the 1920 seconds with a big backyard where I imagined our future kids playing. We spent weekends fixing it up, painting rooms, and replacing fixtures. Every project felt like we were cementing our future together. Shortly after we settled into our new home, Amanda suggested that we start our own marketing consultancy. Her design skills and my business acumen made us a perfect professional team. We converted the spare bedroom into a home office and launched Parker Cooper Marketing. The first year was tough with long hours and tight budgets, but we were building something together, and that made every challenge worthwhile. In our second year, we brought on Jackson Reed as a partner. He was an old colleague of mine with impressive client connections and the kind of charismatic personality that sealed deals. With Jackson on board, our business expanded rapidly. Soon we were able to lease a proper office space downtown and hire additional staff. Those first 3 years of marriage seemed perfect on the surface. We were successful professionally, our home was beautiful, and our friends often commented on how in sync we were. But looking back, there were signs I chose to ignore. Amanda started working later and later at the office. She claimed it was to meet client deadlines, but more often than not, Jackson was there too. She became increasingly protective of her phone, changing the password and keeping it face down at all times. Our intimate moments became less frequent, with Amanda claiming exhaustion or headaches. At the time, I attributed it all to the stress of growing our business. I was wrong. My first real suspicion came when Amanda started changing her appearance in subtle ways. New hairstyle, more sophisticated clothing, expensive perfume I had never smelled before. She joined a new gym, despite our home equipment gathering dust, and suddenly had evening workout sessions that could not be rescheduled. There was a business trip to Chicago, where Jackson and Amanda both attended. When I offered to come along, Amanda quickly discouraged it, saying they would be in meetings the entire time, and it would be a waste of my time. I noticed her packing lingerie I had never seen before. Still, I pushed my doubts aside. This was Amanda, my wife, my partner, the woman who had stood before our friends and family and promised to love me forever, the woman who knew all my secrets, all my flaws, and loved me anyway. I could not bring myself to voice my suspicions, because doing so would make them real. Our 4th anniversary was approaching, and I decided to surprise Amanda with a weekend getaway to the same vineyard where we had been married. I was in our home office, looking for our wedding album, to remind myself of the exact spot where we had said our vows. That is when I found it. Amanda had left her laptop open, and a notification popped up. A message from Jackson. Normally, I would never invade her privacy, but something about the preview text made my stomach drop. Last night was amazing. I cannot wait to feel you again. My hands shook as I opened the message thread. What I found destroyed my world in an instant. Intimate conversations spanning months. Photos they had exchanged. Plans for their next rendezvous. And worse, discussions about me. How they were fooling me. How Amanda found my trust endearing but naive. As if that was not enough, I found hotel receipts in her email for dates she had told me she was working late or visiting her sister. 8 months of lies right under my nose. 8 months of coming home to me, kissing me, sharing my bed, all while carrying on with my business partner and friend. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark office for hours, trying to process what I had discovered. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my wife, was a carefully constructed lie. The initial shock felt like a physical blow. My chest tightened, and I could not breathe properly. I rushed to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left. Then I sat on the cool tile floor, my back against the wall, and stared into space for what felt like hours. The perfect life I thought I had built was nothing but a mirage disappearing before my eyes. That night I pretended to be asleep when Amanda came home. I could smell unfamiliar cologne on her, and it took everything in me not to confront her right then. But something held me back. A primal sense of self-preservation, perhaps. I knew that if I confronted her, there would be denials, then confessions, then promises to change and work on our marriage. The thought of going through all of that, the couple's therapy, the rebuilding of trust that would never fully return, felt like a prison sentence. For 3 days I moved through our house like a ghost, while Amanda remained oblivious. She continued her routine, leaving early for client meetings, returning late smelling of perfume and satisfaction. Each lie she told twisted the knife deeper. Each casual kiss on my cheek felt like acid burning my skin. I could not eat or sleep. Dark circles formed under my eyes, and when Amanda asked if I was feeling well, I nearly laughed at the absurdity of her concern. On the 4th night, as I lay awake listening to her peaceful breathing beside me, an idea formed in my mind. What if I just disappeared? The thought scared me at first, but the more I considered it, the more appealing it became. I could start fresh somewhere new. No confrontations, no messy divorce, no mutual friends forced to choose sides. Just a clean break and a second chance at building a life not founded on lies. Once the seed was planted, I became methodical in my planning. I researched states far from Washington where I could reasonably start over. I settled on Maine, about as far across the country as I could get, while staying in the continental United States. Portland seemed like a city where I could find work and fade into anonymity. I opened a new bank account at a different bank under my name only, and gradually transferred small amounts from our joint savings. Not enough to empty it, but enough to give me a cushion while I established myself. I gathered my important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport, keeping them in a locked briefcase in my car. I researched identity changes, but decided against anything illegal. I would remain Buster Cooper, but I would become a different version of myself. I grew a beard, changed my hairstyle, started wearing glasses instead of contacts. Small changes that collectively created a new visual identity. I created a backstory for my new life. I would be a widower from Arizona, looking for a fresh start after losing my wife to cancer. The sympathy this story generated would likely prevent too many personal questions. I practiced telling this story in front of the mirror until it felt almost true. The timing had to be perfect. I chose a Wednesday when Amanda had mentioned she would be working late on a major client presentation with Jackson. I knew from their messages that this was code for a rendezvous at the hotel downtown where they usually met. This would give me several hours to execute my plan. That final morning with Amanda was surreal. She kissed me goodbye as if nothing was wrong, told me she loved me and reminded me she would be home late. I looked at her trying to memorize her face, while simultaneously trying to understand how the woman I had loved so completely could betray me so thoroughly. I watched her car disappear down our street for the last time. Then I went to work packing only what I absolutely needed. Clothes, a few books, my laptop, and a single photo of my parents. Everything else I left behind. Our wedding album stayed on the shelf. The watch Amanda had given me for our first anniversary remained in its case. The life we had built together I abandoned. The last thing I did before leaving was place my wedding ring on our nightstand. No note, no explanation, just the gold band that had symbolized promises, now broken beyond repair. I took one final look at our home, the careful renovations, the garden we had planted together, the porch swing, where we had spent summer evenings talking about our future. Then I got in my packed car and drove away from Seattle, away from Amanda, away from the ruins of the life I had believed in. The drive across the country took 5 days. I stayed in cheap motels, paid cash, and kept to myself. Each mile that passed put more distance between me and my old life, and I found myself breathing a little easier. By the time I crossed into Maine, I felt like a different person. Portland welcomed me with its historic brick buildings and ocean breeze. I found a small apartment in the eastern part of the city furnished sparsely with second-hand items. It was nothing like our stylish Seattle home, but it was mine alone, untainted by deception. I underwent a complete digital detox, deleting all social media accounts and changing my email. I bought a new phone with a Maine area code. The only connection I maintained was with my parents, who I called from a prepaid phone to let them know I was safe but needed time away. I swore them to secrecy, and though concerned, they respected my wishes. Finding work was challenging without being able to use recent references, but I eventually secured a position at a small local publishing house. The pay was modest compared to what I had earned before, but it was enough to sustain my simple new lifestyle. My marketing background was valuable, but I presented myself as someone looking to start at the bottom again, willing to learn and grow. My new life as just Buster was quiet and solitary. I avoided close friendships, initially fearful that questions about my past would force me to either lie or reveal too much. I spent my evenings walking along the rocky Maine coastline, watching the Atlantic waves and slowly processing my grief for the life and relationship I had lost. Despite my precautions, I lived with constant fear of being discovered, Every time the phone rang with an unknown number, my heart would race. Each time someone looked at me too long in a public place, I wondered if they somehow recognized me. The anxiety was exhausting, but still preferable to facing the alternative. About a year after I disappeared, I allowed myself to check in on my old life through a public library computer. I discovered that Amanda had reported me missing. There had been news articles, police investigations, and even a small reward offered for information. According to one article, the police had eventually concluded that I had likely left voluntarily, as money had been withdrawn from accounts, and my passport was missing. Through a mutual friend I contacted via a temporary email address, I learned that Amanda had been frantic in the weeks after I vanished. She had hired private investigators and plastered the city with my photo. Jackson had been by her side through it all, playing the role of the supportive friend, while likely sharing her bed as soon as the search parties disbanded. The media coverage had led to speculation about foul play, with some pointing fingers at Amanda herself. The irony was not lost on me. In some ways, she had caused my disappearance, just not in the way they suspected. The knowledge that Amanda had been forced to face public scrutiny brought a complicated mixture of guilt and validation. I had not vanished to punish her intentionally, but I could not deny a certain satisfaction in knowing she had not been able to simply replace me with Jackson and continue her life uninterrupted. Over time, I began to establish deeper roots in Portland. My position at the publishing house evolved from basic marketing assistant to managing smaller campaigns. My boss, Thomas, appreciated my creativity and work ethic, even if he found me somewhat reserved. The steady routine and focus on work provided structure that helped me heal. I rented a small house closer to the ocean in my second year, allowing myself small comforts as I rebuilt my life. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a mixed breed with soulful eyes, who asked nothing of my past and gave unconditional affection. Walking Cooper along the beach became my daily meditation, the rhythm of waves and his playful energy gradually restoring my peace. Making friends remained challenging. I kept conversations superficial, deflecting personal questions with vague answers that discouraged deeper inquiry. Nevertheless, a few colleagues persisted, particularly Maria from the design department, who regularly invited me to staff gatherings. Eventually, I began accepting these invitations, slowly expanding my social circle while maintaining careful boundaries. Dating seemed impossible at first. The thought of trusting someone with my heart again felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the ground would give way. But after 2 years of solitude, loneliness began to outweigh fear. I accepted a dinner invitation from Sophia, a librarian I met during a publishing event. Sophia was nothing like Amanda. Where Amanda had been outgoing and vibrant, Sophia was thoughtful and serene. She asked questions but never pushed when I changed the subject. Our relationship developed slowly, built on shared literary interests and quiet evenings, rather than the passionate whirlwind that had characterized my courtship with Amanda. The greatest challenge was navigating intimacy while maintaining my secrets. I told Sophia I was a widower, using the story I had rehearsed so many times. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but revealing the truth seemed impossible. How could I explain abandoning my life without warning? How could anyone understand that choice without judging me as a coward? Despite these complications, my relationship with Sophia deepened. After a year of dating, she introduced me to her family, who welcomed me warmly. For the first time since leaving Seattle, I began to envision a future with someone else. The possibility both thrilled and terrified me. My professional life continued to improve as well. A promotion to marketing director came with a significant salary increase, allowing me to purchase a small cottage on the outskirts of Portland. The property needed work, but I found satisfaction in the physical labor of restoration, creating something permanent and real. Therapy became an essential part of my healing journey. Finding a therapist I could be honest with required careful searching. But eventually, I met Dr. Fitzgerald, an older man whose compassionate pragmatism created a safe space. With him, I could acknowledge the pain of Amanda's betrayal, without justifying my extreme response. He never condoned my disappearance, but helped me understand the trauma that had triggered it. Through therapy, I began to recognize my avoidance patterns. I had literally run away from conflict with Amanda, and I continued to flee emotionally whenever relationships became challenging. This awareness did not immediately change my behavior, but it planted seeds for growth. Trust remained my greatest struggle. Every kind gesture from a colleague, every affectionate touch from Sophia, triggered momentary suspicion. What ulterior motives might be hidden behind their smiles? What secrets were they keeping? Logically, I knew I was projecting my past onto innocent interactions, but the emotional reflexes were deeply ingrained. Then came the email that shattered my carefully constructed peace. It arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning 5 years after I had left Seattle. The subject line simply read, "I found you." The sender address contained Amanda's name. My hands trembled as I opened it, half convinced it must be some kind of scam. But the contents confirmed my worst fear. Somehow, Amanda had tracked me down. Her message was lengthy and emotional. She explained that she had never stopped looking for me, hiring various investigators over the years without success. Finally, a digital forensics specialist had managed to trace activity connected to my social security number. She wrote about her shock at my abrupt disappearance, her initial confusion, and then the devastating realization when she found her messages with Jackson on her laptop history. Amanda described her shame and regret in excruciating detail. She and Jackson had continued their relationship after I vanished, but it had imploded spectacularly within 6 months. Jackson, it seemed, was not interested in commitment once the excitement of secrecy was gone. He had moved to California with a younger colleague, leaving Amanda alone to face the whispers and suspicions. She wrote about therapy, about facing her narcissistic tendencies and infidelity patterns. She claimed to have changed, to have grown from the selfish woman she had been. The email ended with a plea: "I just want to talk, to apologize in person, to see your face one more time." Reading her words triggered an immediate panic attack. My chest constricted, my vision blurred, and I found myself gasping for air on my kitchen floor. Cooper, my dog, pressed against me anxiously until the episode passed. When I could think clearly again, I deleted the email without responding. But Amanda was persistent. A week later, another message arrived, then another. Weekly communications that grew increasingly desperate in tone. She shared more details about her life after my departure, her struggle with depression, her attempt to rebuild with the cloud of my disappearance hanging over her. She mentioned moving to Boston to escape the gossip in Seattle, her current work as a graphic designer for a nonprofit, her continuing therapy. In one particularly upsetting email, she included old photos of us from happier times, writing, "We had something real before I destroyed it. I need you to know that not everything was a lie." The images of my younger smiling self next to Amanda reopened wounds I thought had long healed. After 3 months of unanswered emails, Amanda escalated. "If you will not respond, I will come find you. I know you are in Portland. I can find your address eventually. Would not it be better to meet on your terms, rather than have me appear at your door?" This threat forced me to acknowledge a truth I had been avoiding. The past I had run from was catching up to me, and I could no longer outrun it. The carefully constructed life I had built in Portland was at risk. More importantly, my relationship with Sophia was at a crossroads. Sophia had noticed my increased anxiety, the distraction, the missed dates, as I obsessed over Amanda's messages. When she questioned me, I deflected unsuccessfully. Finally, one night after I checked my email 6 times during dinner, she confronted me directly. "Something is wrong, Buster. Either you trust me enough to tell me what it is, or you do not trust me at all. There is no middle ground anymore." Faced with losing Sophia, I took a terrifying risk. I told her a partial truth. I admitted that my wife had not died, but that I had left her after discovering her infidelity. I explained that she had recently found me and was threatening to come to Portland. I could not bring myself to confess the full extent of my deception the way I had simply vanished without a word. Sophia listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When I finished my edited story, she was silent for a long moment before speaking. "There is more you are not telling me. I can feel it. Whatever it is, I can handle the truth. What I cannot handle are more lies." Her ultimatum hung between us, a moment of reckoning I had avoided for years. Before I could formulate a response, my phone chimed with an email notification. Amanda had booked a flight to Portland for the following weekend. She was coming ready or not. The crisis point had arrived. I could run again, abandon the life I had built in Portland, just as I had in Seattle. I could continue deceiving Sophia, risking losing her when the full truth inevitably emerged. Or I could stand my ground, face Amanda, and finally be honest with everyone, including myself. The realization came with surprising clarity. I was tired of running. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of the web of lies that had become so tangled I could barely navigate it myself. The time had come to face my past, whatever the consequences. With Amanda's arrival imminent, I knew I had to prepare properly. The first step was complete honesty with Sophia. I invited her to my cottage, sat her down, and finally revealed the whole truth. I told her about finding the affair, about my decision to disappear without a word about the new identity I had crafted. I showed her news articles about my disappearance, proving that I had not exaggerated the situation. I would understand if you walk out that door and never speak to me again, I concluded. But I am done with secrets. I want a chance at a real relationship built on truth, even if that means losing you now. Sophia listened without interruption, her expression shifting from shock to confusion to sadness. When I finished, she asked for time to process. She left without promising to return, and I spent that night alone, facing the very real possibility that my deception had cost me the woman I had grown to love. To my surprise, Sophia called the next morning. "What you did was extreme and concerning," she said, "but I can see you are trying to make things right. I will stand by you while you face this, but our future depends on how you handle it. No more running, Buster." Her support gave me the courage to contact my therapist for an emergency session. Dr. Fitzgerald helped me develop a plan for meeting Amanda that would protect my emotional health while allowing for closure. We worked through potential scenarios and practiced responses that were honest but maintained healthy boundaries. I chose a public location for our meeting, a coffee shop near the harbor with outside seating. I arrived early, securing a table with a clear view of both entrances and exits. Despite the years of emotional preparation, my heart pounded painfully as I waited. Then suddenly, there she was. Amanda looked different than I remembered. Thinner, with shorter hair and lines around her eyes that had not been there 5 years ago. She scanned the patio nervously until her gaze locked with mine. Recognition, relief, and anxiety all flashed across her face in rapid succession. As she approached, I stood instinctively, a muscle memory from our years together. She stopped a few feet away, respecting my space, while tears filled her eyes. "Buster," she whispered, "you look so different, but your eyes are the same." The sound of her voice, once so beloved, now sent a confusing mixture of emotions through me. Anger, sadness, a ghost of old affection, and surprisingly pity. "Sit down, Amanda," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat wiping tears with trembling hands. I practiced what I would say 1,000 times, but now I cannot remember any of it. I remained silent, giving her space to find her words. Eventually, she began to speak her story, pouring out in a torrent of regret and explanation. She talked about her affair with Jackson, her shock at my disappearance, her spiral into depression afterward. "The police suspected me at first," she said. "Friends stopped calling. Your parents would not speak to me. The business collapsed. Jackson left. I lost everything, and I deserved to." She described years of therapy confronting her childhood abandonment issues that had led to destructive relationship patterns. She talked about making amends to others. She had heard about rebuilding her life and career from scratch. "But I could never fully move forward without apologizing to you," she concluded, "without knowing you were okay, without trying to explain, even though there is no justification for what I did." I listened without interrupting, feeling strangely detached from her pain. When she finished, I took a deep breath and spoke the truth I had rehearsed with my therapist. "What you did broke something in me that can never be fully repaired," I said calmly. "I am not proud of how I responded. Disappearing was extreme, and it hurt people beyond just you. But I will not apologize for protecting myself the only way I knew how at the time. I explained that I had built a new life, one I valued and would not sacrifice. I told her about my journey toward healing, carefully omitting specific details about my job and relationship with Sophia. I do not hate you anymore, Amanda. That is the best I can offer. I have forgiven you for my own peace, not for yours. But there is no possibility of reconciliation between us. That chapter of my life is permanently closed. Her initial response was what I expected: desperation, tinged with denial. But we could at least try to talk more, to be friends, she pleaded. We shared so much. Do not you think we owe ourselves that chance? We do not owe each other anything now, I replied firmly. The marriage ended. The moment you chose to betray it, even if the legal dissolution came later. As our conversation continued, I watched resignation gradually replace hope in her expression. She asked questions about my disappearance, about whether I had ever considered reaching out. I answered honestly but maintained firm boundaries around my current life. Finally, she asked the question that seemed most important to her. Can you ever forgive me? Truly forgive me? I considered my answer carefully. I already have, in the way that matters most. I have released the anger and bitterness that were poisoning my life. But forgiveness does not mean restoration. It does not mean we have a future together in any capacity. Tears streamed down her face, but I sensed acceptance beginning to take hold. I understand, she whispered. I just needed to see you one last time to know you survived what I did to you. You seem stronger now. I am, I acknowledged. Not despite what happened, but because of it. The pain forced me to rebuild myself from the foundation up. As our meeting drew to a close, Amanda asked if she could hug me goodbye. I declined gently, but offered my hand instead. Her fingers felt small and unfamiliar in mine, nothing like the connection we had once shared. We had become strangers to each other, and I found peace in that realization. Goodbye, Amanda, I said with finality. I wish you healing and a good life, just not one that includes me. She nodded, wiped her tears, and walked away. I watched her disappear around the corner, feeling an unexpected sense of lightness. The confrontation I had dreaded for years had finally happened, and I had survived it intact. In the weeks that followed, my relationship with Sophia deepened in ways I had not anticipated. My complete honesty, though initially shocking to her, had removed the barriers I had maintained. For the first time, I could be fully known and still accepted. The experience was both terrifying and liberating. I finally contacted my parents directly, rather than through anonymous calls. Their joy at hearing my voice properly, after so many years, brought tears to my eyes. I promised to visit them soon, to introduce them to Sophia and reconnect as family. Amanda sent one final email thanking me for meeting with her and promising to respect my wishes for no further contact. She attached divorce papers she had prepared years earlier but never filed, hoping I would emerge from hiding. I signed them without hesitation and mailed them back. The legal closure felt like the final step in a journey that had begun that fateful day in Seattle. Working with my therapist, I continued addressing the trust issues and conflict avoidance that had led to such an extreme response to betrayal. I recognized that while Amanda's actions were inexcusable, my choice to disappear without a word had caused additional pain to innocent people. This acknowledgement did not change my past decisions, but informed how I would handle future challenges. 6 months after meeting Amanda, I took Sophia to the small cove near my cottage at sunset. As waves crashed against the rocky shore, I asked her to marry me. Her yes felt like the beginning of an authentic life I had nearly convinced myself I did not deserve. The path from betrayal to healing had been long and unconventional. I had lost my way hidden in shadows, and eventually found myself again through the painful work of confronting truth. The lesson I carried forward was not about the dangers of trusting others, but about the importance of trusting myself, of choosing honesty even when it was difficult, and of facing problems directly rather than running from them. Have you ever had to confront someone who betrayed your trust? How did you handle it? And what would you have done in my situation? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and transformation. Share this video with someone who might be struggling to face their past It might give them the courage they need. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations.